So I've been wanting to make a video for a while about what I do to Aristocraft heavyweights. They are cool cars. I like them very much. And with just a few improvements, they are even better cars. So let's pull one out and see what we can do. So what we have here is a stock Aristocraft heavyweight. This is just a regular old passenger car. This thing is from the 2007 run, and it is essentially brand new. I don't think it's ever been run. It still has the original Aristo couplers, which we're going to change out and put 906s on. It has track power pickups, which I always test the track power pickups just to see if the lights work. And I do not change over to LEDs. I think they're too bright. I like the dim sort of look, I guess, if you will. I think it looks older. But we'll be getting rid of the track power option because I have all dead rails. And I'll be installing a 9-volt battery with a whip. And these are pretty cheap on Amazon, so I even buy the batteries on Amazon. The other thing I do is I always put these little wire things on the bottom. Nobody ever puts them on. I don't know why. Maybe they break too easy. Who knows? But one of the major things that I do is I get rid of these springs. The original springs, you can see there's a gap there where the wheel rides, and there's no gap there. And if you look on this other truck, now mind you, like I said, this is brand new out of the box. Sure, it's 14 years old, but it's brand new out of the box. See how much sag is on there? What I do, and I got these at my local hardware store, is I change those springs out. They're 5/16 by 5/8, 0.026 for the gauge. And they're a stronger spring. Now, if you've got an indoor layout and your trackage is perfect and everything, then fine, leave the stock springs in. I have 1,000 linear feet outside that changes and ebbs and flows with weather. And while most of your normal stock cars run fine on it, I had a heck of a time getting these heavyweights to stay on the tracks. So once I changed the springs out, suggestion by a friend named Kyle, the rideability and pullability, and I don't even know if that's a word, mentalability, they just run so much better. They can handle the little different quirks that are in an outdoor layout. So that's probably the biggest suggestion that I can make for you, is to find some of these springs, 5/16 by 5/8, 0.026 gauge. I'm assuming that's the wire gauge. And put them on. They're not hard to change. So let's get to it. So like I said, the first thing that I do is change out these springs. So this is really actually very easy to do. I have a small flathead screwdriver, and I stick it in the spring, compress it, and get it out of there. And if you take the new spring, put it in, you don't really need a tool to get it in. You just need to make sure that it gets onto the little flange. It's on the top one, but not on the bottom one. I will need a screwdriver to do that, but that's no big deal. Just push that down and get it on there. See how it's no big deal? Making a liar out of me right out of the gate. So at any rate, they do go on pretty easy, and they come out pretty easy too. See how it's making a liar out of me again? How easily they come out? So now you can see that there's no gap. underneath just from the weight of the car. And it takes some good effort to push down on that. And the point is, this keeps the wheels in contact with the rails. So, since I have to take the trucks off to do the wiring, while I have the trucks off, I'll be putting these on. First thing I do when I take the trucks off is I grab my trusty nippers here and I drop them on the floor and I cut the wires that are going down to the body of the car. I do that on both trucks. Maybe. I'm trying to do things one-handed here. Okay. To take the trucks off, it's just these two screws right here. All right, so now the goal is I need to get this battery whip tied into those two wires underneath the bulkhead or whatever it's called that holds the trucks on, or controls the swivel, I should say, to get the battery all the way over to here where it can be hidden. What's really neat about this whole situation is, since I'm using the track power pickups, the on-off switch still works. So I'll show you how I do that. Before I take the plate off, I take my little screwdriver and I just put a little scratch at the bottom of the car, here and here. This shows me how wide of a gap I need to channel through. So I've got my little scratches there. The wire is really small that I'm using. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the Dremel here, a little cutting tool, and I'm just going to slice a channel in there. Probably 2 blade widths wide, but I go a little deep. That way I can stack the wires on top of each other. Ew. Well, that's just melted plastic. I let it cool off before touching it because it's hot, but it's really easy to pull off. You could take a razor knife and get the excess off, which is probably what I'm about to do here shortly. And then there's the channel for the wire to go through under that piece. So there's a lot of videos out there on YouTube on how to solder, and I really don't care what they say. The biggest thing you need are extra hands. I bought this little plate thing here with these little magnetic flexible gator clips, and I love it. It gives me 2 extra hands to hold the wire. So I needed to lengthen the wire because that's where I want the battery in order to get over to there. I just wanted to throw my 2 cents in. So in order to get the wires to the right length, don't plug it into the battery. Flip the battery around and I just kind of hold the wire, the plug where it's supposed to be, and then plan out my length for the wires. I try not to make them too extra long. I don't want them saggy. So I'm going to cut them right after that bend, and then we'll solder those together down there. One thing I will tell you before you capture your wire with solder, don't forget to put your shrink tube on. Slide it past, slide it far away enough so it doesn't get melted into position. Yeah, that's happened many times. Forget to put the shrink tube on. Now I'll just use a little dab of hot glue to hold the wires down. The plate will hold the wires down here, and then I'll use a little bit of hot glue for the rest of the way. And I'll actually hot glue the battery into place. All right, now that that's done, let's test it out. You can see the light bulbs in there. Where's that light switch? Okay. For me, that's plenty bright enough if I'm running at night. You can run the batteries in series to get the lights brighter. I did that in a couple of diner cars, but for these coaches and any other car, I just do one battery. I can do two things with the wires at the other end. You can put some hot glue on them and glue them down, separated away from each other in case you want to ever use them again, or you can snip them right off and call it done. I'm going to glue these down. So these old style KDs, I shouldn't say old style, but 835s, 836, and 837s came with a ton of these screws. Well, I kept them all. I have a huge tray of them, and they actually work well with the 906s to install them in here. And all I use is this drill bit, and they self-tap into the plastic. Let's put one on. So my buddy Sean 3D printed these spacers for me, which essentially is the exact same thickness as these little bars that are sticking up. So it's really nice because this is where the holes are, you know, and then one in the middle in the back. And what it does, if you, and now I modified mine a little bit, is when you put the KD in place right over those holes, it puts it right about here at the rubber flange. I mean, obviously depending on what age heavyweight you have, some heavyweights just have a bar or a strip going across here, which is another reason why I would scratch marks on either side. These plates are really nice, they don't move. But consistently, all the heavyweights, aside from, I think it was an RPO, that was different on one end. But in reality, that puts it at the exact right height. So with the right size drill bit, these screws will self-tap right into the plastic. And I know it doesn't look like a lot, but it's more than enough. The plastic is barely that thick. So I'll get those screwed in. And this side will be done. You gotta push down with a little bit of force. Not the force of 1,000 elephants, but a little bit of force, and that's nice and tight. And when you're self-tapping into plastic, don't use a screw gun. Use a hand screw, and as soon as you start to feel tension, stop screwing it in, or you will strip out the hole. Then you will have to use longer screws and nuts, or larger screws. So there you go. I mean, I can lift. It passes the wiggle test, as my buddy Sean would say. The one thing I did forget to tell you or show you was how I seal up the boxes for these KD couplers. Now, I use the soldering tip, that's the knife edge, okay? And all I do is a little melty plastic. No glue, no screws. Just melt them together. It's like pushing the easy button. And there we have it. Coupler's at the exact right height. Pick up that car. Pick up that car. And I got the wires on. Turn that on. The lights are a little dimmer than what they would be with track power, but again, like I said, I like that. So there we go. Another passenger car done. One more to go.